Welcome to Shad's Guitar Show. Whether it's the gear or the players who made the gear famous, join me each episode as we discuss all things guitar. Well, hey there everyone, and welcome into Shad's Guitar Show. I'm so glad you're joining me as always for another episode, and I'll tell you, you guys have probably figured out that as my interests go, so do these episodes go. And I want to talk today about a guitar brand that I've just recently become kind of obsessed with. And, they've been around a long time. I've had a couple of the Japanese ones a while back, but never a proper USA one, and still haven't, but I am very, very dangerously close, let's say, to pulling the trigger on ordering one. But I just got the JTG version, which is their import Chinese one, and it's a phenomenal guitar. I did a YouTube review of it. If you're interested in seeing that over at Shad's Guitar Show, you can see my review, and here's some playing demonstration of the James Tyler JTG signature, or not signature, but JTG series guitar that I just got. Phenomenal instrument for the price. Hard to believe they can make a guitar that great at that price, but anyway, it started me thinking, as these things often do, about James Tyler guitars and who was James Tyler and how did this whole thing come to be, and just kind of the story of James Tyler guitars. So without further ado, join me as we dive into exactly that, a little history on the James Tyler Guitar Company. So today we're talking about a very distinctive as well as highly respected boutique guitar brand that is based here in Southern California. And that is, of course, James Tyler Guitars. The James Tyler story really begins in the early 70s. Tyler had been fascinated with guitars since he was a teenager, and by high school he was already taking his own instruments apart, experimenting with electronics, refinishing them, and figuring out how they worked. While attending college, he began doing guitar repair work to help pay his bills. And by around 1972, he was doing repairs out of a garage, and later in the decade, he became the main repair and restoration guy for Norman's Rare Guitars in the San Fernando Valley. In 1980, Tyler opened his own repair shop in Reseda, California, and his timing couldn't have been much better. Los Angeles was becoming the center of the session guitar universe, and players were increasingly modifying traditional Fender-style guitars with humbucker, hotter single coils, preamps, locking tremolos, and other upgrades. So James became one of the guys you went to if you wanted a guitar modified to do something a stock instrument couldn't. His reputation spread almost entirely by word of mouth. And importantly, a bassist named Neil Steubenhaus was one of the musicians who helped introduce Tyler to other studio players. And before long, his shop was attracting players like Michael Landau, Dan Huff, Dean Parks, Steve Lukather, and a who's who of other studio musicians. At first, Tyler wasn't necessarily building guitars completely from scratch. He was assembling custom instruments using parts from companies like Schecter and Kubecki, along with custom pieces made through Tom Anderson's shop. But all of the repair and modification work was teaching Tyler something important: what professional players actually wanted from a guitar. And that eventually led to the guitar that really established the Tyler name. In 1987, the James Tyler Studio Elite debuted at the Los Angeles Guitar Show, along with Tyler's now famous oversized headstock design. And let's face it, the headstock is the one thing that you either love or hate. It's a very polarizing design. Ever since I saw it in the 90s, I've loved it, but your mileage may vary. But whether you love the headstock or hate it, you definitely know it when you're looking at a Tyler. So what makes a Tyler different? Well, you could describe the Studio Elite as a boutique super Strat, but that doesn't quite capture it. Tyler guitars grew out of the need of LA session players. There were musicians who might need a convincing Strat-style clean sound on one track, a fat humbucker sound on the next, and then something completely different 10 minutes later. So versatility became a major part of the Tyler DNA. And one of Tyler's important early innovations was his lead rhythm circuit using a Demeter mid-boost preamp. developed around 1982. Tyler guitars would become known for elaborate switching systems, active mid-boost circuits, and pickup combinations that could cover an enormous amount of sonic territory. But electronics are only part of the story. Tyler guitars have also developed a reputation for their necks and playability. Although the company uses modern technology such as CNC machining, 3D modeling, and other precision manufacturing techniques, a surprising amount of final work is still done by hand. Necks receive final shaping by hand, bodies go through extensive hand sanding and finishing, and the frets are dressed and polished through a multi-stepped hand process. The result is a guitar that's extremely precise without necessarily feeling sterile. Then there are the finishes. If you've ever seen a Tyler in Burning Water, Psychedelic Vomit, or one of the various schmear finishes, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And interestingly, Psychedelic Vomit was originally created for Mike Landau in 1991, essentially as a joke. And 2 years later, Tyler created the famous Burning Water guitar for Landau. Players loved it so much that the Burning Water became a regular offering in 1994. They're loud, weird, and almost impossible to mistake for anything else. The player most closely associated with James Tyler guitars is definitely Michael Landau. Landau was one of the busiest session guitarists in Los Angeles and played on recordings by artists including Michael Jackson, Joni Mitchell, James Taylor, and countless others. His relationship with James Tyler helped shape several of the company's most recognizable instruments and finishes. But another major Tyler player is Dan Huff. Before becoming one of Nashville's most successful producers, Huff was one of the elite LA session guitarists of the 80s and 90s. Tyler built instruments specifically around his needs, including the Dan Huff Classic, and also Huff toured with the Tyler Ultimate Weapon during Giant's 1993 tour. And side note, if you're not familiar with the band Giant, the album The Last of the Runaways from 1989, it is a masterpiece in killer guitar playing, killer tone, great production, amazing songwriting, featuring, of course, the guy we're talking about, Dan Huff. I mean, just an amazing album that you definitely want to go and listen to. It is a masterclass in technical guitar playing, but in the context of really catchy 80s style songs. Then there's the legendary Steve Lukather. Now, we know Steve Lukather now for his signature models with Ernie Ball Music Man, but he was an absolute legend of the LA studio scene, and Tyler built Lukather his famous Puffy Studio Elite in 1988, during the period when the Studio Elite was becoming one of the ultimate professional session guitars. Tyler instruments have also found their way into the hands of an enormous list of touring and studio musicians. The company's artist history includes players working with Michael Jackson, Madonna, Joni Mitchell, Don Henley, Whitney Houston, Chicago, Lionel Richie, Pat Benatar, Ozzy Osbourne, Hart, Jackson Browne, Steve Winwood, John Fogerty, Faith Hill, and so many others. And there's a great little piece about the Tyler history connected to Michael Jackson. According to James Tyler's own history, guitarist David Williams used a Tyler worked on guitar for recording the famous guitar parts on Billie Jean. So James Tyler guitars didn't start because someone sat down and decided to start another guitar company. They evolved out of a repair shop. James Tyler spent years listening to some of the best professional guitarists in Los Angeles complaining about what their guitars couldn't do, and then figured out how to make them do it. The Studio Elite became almost the ultimate expression of that philosophy. Take the basic familiarity of a Strat-style guitar, improve the ergonomics, refine the neck and fretwork, dramatically expand the electronics, and build the whole thing to the standards of professional session musicians. Then give it a gigantic headstock and a paint job that looks like something exploded at a chemical factory. And that's a James Tyler. And in many ways, Tyler helped establish the blueprint for the modern boutique Super Strat. An instrument that could retain the feel and personality of a traditional guitar while offering the precision, versatility, and consistency demanded by modern professional players. For a relatively small company, James Tyler Guitars has had an oversized influence, particularly among the session guitar community. And if you want to understand why players like Mike Landau, Dan Huff, and Steve Lukather became so important to the evolution of the modern electric guitar design. James Tyler Guitars is a pretty good place to start. Today, James Tyler Guitars continues to offer several variations of the design that made the company famous. The flagship remains the Studio Elite family. The current lineup includes the Studio Elite, Studio Elite HD, and Studio Elite HDP, along with the visually iconic Burning Water and Burning Water 2K models. The Studio Elite HD is particularly popular and retains the basic Tyler formula: an alder-bodied Strat-inspired instrument with Tyler pickups, a mid-boost preamp, and a huge range of custom options. And there's also the Classic, which takes the Tyler concept in a more traditional, vintage-inspired direction. For players looking for something visually more aggressive, there's the Ultimate Weapon. Originally introduced in 1991, the Ultimate Weapon was designed partially because players who were using Tylers in the studio wanted something with a more contemporary look when they went on stage. Then there's the Mongoose series, Tyler's take on a single cutaway guitar. The current Mongoose family includes the Mongoose Special and Mongoose Retro, combining the more traditional single-cut silhouette with the playability and electronics you expect from Tyler. And Tyler has continued developing the Studio Elite concept as well. One of the company's most recent featured instruments is the Dan Huff Studio Elite HDX, created around the longtime Tyler player and legendary session guitarist Dan Huff. So while the Studio Elite is still the guitar most people immediately associate with James Tyler, the current American-made lineup essentially revolves around several families: Studio Elite, Classic, Ultimate Weapon, and Mongoose, with numerous variations within those families. And because these are highly customizable instruments, calling them simply models doesn't really tell you the whole story. Bodywoods, neck profiles, fretboards, pickups, switching system, bridges, and some of the wildest finishes in the guitar industry can all be configured to create a guitar that is very specific and tailored to the player. That's appropriate because customization has really been the James Tyler philosophy from the beginning. The company didn't start by asking, what guitar can we mass produce? It started by asking professional musicians, what do you need the guitar to do? And more than 5 decades after James Tyler began repairing and modifying guitars in Southern California, that idea remains at the heart of James Tyler Guitars. And I want to mention a little about the new JTG series guitars, which is the one that I have. Announced in 2025, JTG was created to bring the Tyler design philosophy to players who might not be able to spend $6,000 or $7,000 or even more on one of the company's American-made instruments. Unlike the flagship Tyler guitars built in California, the JTG guitars are manufactured in China through a factory partner selected by James Tyler's team. But this isn't simply a Tyler logo being placed on a generic import guitar. General Manager Rich Renkin explains that the company spent considerable time evaluating factories throughout Asia before choosing its manufacturing partner. The Tyler team worked through multiple prototypes and developing components specifically for these guitars, with the goal of retaining as much of the Tyler personality and experience as possible at a considerably lower price point. The most recognizable model is the JTG MK1, essentially the JTG interpretation of the famous Tyler Studio Elite. It has a solid alder body, Canadian hard rock maple neck, Indian rosewood fingerboard, JTG locking tuners, and 2-post tremolo. The HSS pickup configuration uses 2 JTG 5500 single coils and a JTG super humbucker. And importantly, they didn't leave out one of the features that makes Tyler's feel like a Tyler. The MK1 includes an onboard mid-boost preamp with a bypass switch, giving players access to the boosted muscular sounds that have been part of the Tyler formula since the LA session days. Even the hardware and pickups were developed specifically for the JTG line, rather than simply using generic off-the-shelf components. And visually, they're still unmistakably Tyler. You get that famous or infamous oversized headstock and some appropriately wild finishes. The JTG guitars don't simply duplicate legendary USA finishes like Burning Water and Schmear, but instead have their own selection of distinctive finishes. Perhaps the biggest difference, though, is the price. The JTG MK1 has been selling for around $1,800, putting a Tyler-designed instrument into an entirely different price category for the company's American guitars. And I think that's an important distinction. JTG isn't really intended to replace a USA James Tyler. Think of it more as an entry point into the Tyler world. Sadly, the guitar world lost James Tyler on August 29th of 2024 when he passed away peacefully at his home with his family by his side. He was 72 years old. According to a statement from his daughters Sarah and Jessica, Tyler had been fighting a long battle with lung disease. His passing marked the end of a remarkable career that stretched for more than 50 years. When James Tyler passed away in 2024, his family described him as a titan of the guitar industry who helped shape the LA studio sounds of the 80s. That's a pretty accurate description of his legacy. Tyler wasn't simply building expensive versions of a Strat. He was part of a generation of Southern California builders who helped redefine what a professional electric guitar could be. He listened to players like Landau, Huff, Dean Parks, and other top session musicians, learning what they needed from an instrument, and then built guitars specifically to those needs. In the process, James Taylor became one of the most important figures in the development of the boutique Super Strat. And he did it with a personality that was impossible to miss. From that enormous Tyler headstock to finishes like Burning Water, Psychedelic Vomit, and Schmear. James Tyler Guitars has continued after his passing, so his designs and the philosophy behind them remain very much alive. James Tyler may have started out as a kid taking guitars apart just to see what made them work, but more than 5 decades later, he left behind a company and a design philosophy that has helped change the modern electric guitar. And that's a pretty incredible legacy. If you've enjoyed this look at James Tyler Guitars, please take a minute to leave a 5-star review wherever you're listening right now, and make sure to share the episode with a guitar-playing friend. Also, when you're over on YouTube, as I said earlier, go and check out my review and demo of my JTG model, and subscribe to the show there, please. Also on Instagram, go over to Shad's Guitar Show and make sure you're following me there. There's lots of cool content on both of those platforms, and I'd love to interact with you there as well. So, to close this one out, let me just remind you that the best guitarist is the one having the most fun.